Good morning. I want to thank Congressman Pittenger and Senator Cassidy and their staffs for putting on this conference and for the invitation to be with you today. As we've heard, trade-based money laundering is a seemingly intractable problem. Illicit money is easy to convert into everyday products such as televisions, clothing, and other goods that do not raise suspicions from border protection or customs authorities. 2 years ago, Global Financial Integrity did an in-depth study of financial crime in Latin America and the Caribbean. We interviewed 250 subject matter experts, and we found that trade-based money laundering was one of the top 3 concerns they had in the financial crime area. So this is certainly an area of concern, not only in Latin America and the Caribbean, but across the globe. What I want to talk to you about today is the role that international trade and global commercial shipping industry plays in the moving, hiding, and laundering of illicit money. I'm going to give you a few statistics, hopefully not too many, and talk about actionable steps that can be taken by the international community, essentially a plan of action. The countries around the world and multilateral institutions can implement to try to attack this problem. Speak to any economist at any development agency and you'll hear a common refrain, which is that global trade is the lifeblood of developing country economies, and of any economy, essentially. And it's absolutely correct. Without global trade, annual trade in goods is about $22 trillion a year. Without that interaction of goods, economies would collapse. But global trade can also help launder the proceeds and deliver all manner of illicit goods or legitimate goods that were obtained illegally. In that case, we're thinking about illegal fishing, illegal mining, timber extraction. In any developing country that relies on income from those industries is certainly undermined. Their economies are undermined when those goods are stolen and sold illegally. Now for some numbers. Each year, the value gap in international trade misinvoicing, this is when the value on goods invoices is misrepresented to evade taxes, to evade customs duties, is $800 billion a year. And this is easy to do. There is no information that goes from an exporting customs department to an importing customs department. There's this gap. There's this sort of black box of information that makes this a very simple process to do. The annual value of illicit trade is close to $2 trillion a year. This includes not only things you would think of immediately, narcotics, weapons, and other things that are illegal, but the legal goods as well. Counterfeit manufacturing of all types of products, handbags, sunglasses, medicines, so that whole range of products is $2 trillion a year. And the IMF estimates that annual money laundering is somewhere between $1.6 and $4 trillion a year. It's a big gap, understandably, as it is difficult to account for. But trade-based money laundering is a major component of that. This is also a sort of pernicious problem, since there are no data to suggest that these figures have peaked, and they certainly have not reduced in any identifiable way. So it's important to note that while 90% of global trade is delivered by ship, 30% of the global commercial shipping fleet, some 29,000 tankers, container ships, cargo ships, fishing vessels, fly flags of convenience. These are countries that provide flags to commercial ships. You do not have to be a resident of that particular country. They tend to provide low tax, low regulation, but also opacity and ownership. So if any ship is connected to any illicit activity, the actual flesh and blood person who owns that company, who controls the activities of that ship, is completely unknown. Recently, GFI did a research project to see if we could connect ships flying flags of convenience to the interdiction of illicit trade in the United States. Of the 170 cases we could find, only 28 of those reported by law enforcement connected a particular ship to a particular interdiction. So while this is a very small data set, we did find that half of those 28 were flying flags of convenience. So we have approached Customs and Border Protection with the help of Senator Cassidy's staff to try to get some additional information to see if we can put some real solid analysis on the figures to see just how often flags of convenience are associated with illegal trade and potentially trade-based money laundering. The global shipping industry is so opaque that it was completely exempted from the OECD's 15% minimum global tax agreement of about a year ago. And that was because the OECD said it was too difficult to determine where shipping companies were actually located. So what we're facing is a convergence of several different factors. Massive amounts of illicit trade, opacity in a large amount of commercial ship ownership, a lack of trade data exchange between customs authorities from country to country, while at the same time there are 5,000 free trade zones around the world, with another 1,000 on the drawing boards. Many of these are operated with very little transparency or accountability, and they can be places to launder funds or transship illicit cargo with absolutely no oversight. In addition, ships' crews can turn off their global positioning systems in order to go dark and evade sanctions of all types. Think of North Korea, Iran, Russia. The way these countries get around global sanctions with their trade is because ships can actually go dark simply by flipping a switch. So this has led to essentially a global trading system that is opaque in many areas and which facilitates all types of illicit activity. As a result, transnational organized crime organizations, non-state actors, drug cartels, and terrorist groups can use the international trading system for illicit purposes, essentially with impunity. The current response to this problem has been one of dedication and hard work, but law enforcement is being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of illicit trade. The effort to interdict this trade is not being done at a scale that will dissuade, deter, or disrupt criminal organizations from using this international trading system to launder money and move illicit proceeds. Which leads to the following recommendations that I provide for your assessment. First would be a global beneficial ownership registry specifically for commercial shipping. As you may know, 100+ countries have said that they will implement a beneficial ownership registry for companies operating in their countries. This is a tremendous show of political will over the last 5 years or so to try to get at anonymous shell companies that launder funds of all types. We believe that a separate registry should be just for global shipping, regardless of any country registry that may be in place or soon will be implemented. This is a way to highlight the companies that, or the individuals that own companies involved in global shipping. Second would be the use of blockchain technology in all ports as a way to automatically and securely transfer trade information from an exporting country to an importing country. By having that information, the importing customs department can easily identify when the value on import invoices has been manipulated in a way that would likely move money illicitly in or out of the country. A global law enforcement database, perhaps operated by Interpol, there would be a free exchange of information among law enforcement on trade-based money laundering cases. And a renewed push for acceptance of the WTO's Kyoto Convention on Free Trade Zones, which essentially says the local customs department of the country where the zone is located should have complete, full access to that zone, and there should be no opacity whatsoever and full accountability of what happens there. What must be, if a customs department cannot identify who actually owns the ship, they'll probably have great difficulty to understand what's on the ship, and knowing what's on the ship is critically important for port security, for national security. Not only can those goods be illicit, they can actually be deadly. What must be kept in mind is that transnational organized crime is a global business, so this is going to require a multilateral approach, a global approach of leaders from around the world. Senator Cassidy is a leader here on trade-based money laundering, and I hope some of you can take up this issue in your countries as well. Thanks very much.